Welcome back to This Day Live, a Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. And I have with me Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development, and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies, CIAS, as well as Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Both of you didn't show up last week, but I'm glad to have you today. Well, today we've had two guests. Dr. Diron Fawibe, who is an old and very experienced man in the oil and gas sector, founder, chairman of the International Energy Services, commenting on latest developments in the downstream sector, in Nigeria, particularly the increase in the pump price of petrol and all the associated issues about subsidy, about OPEC, about IMF, World Bank, and possible social consequences, and what the Nigerian government can possibly do to mitigate the impact or the reality that we all face. And then we had a second guest, Honorable Mark Jacobs, who was talking about the crisis, the factionalization, as it were, of the People's Democratic Party, and also the move by 16 states of the Federation following the race in Nwobike versus federal government of Nigeria about whether the EFCC, NFIU, public process of Corruption Act, and the ICPC are legal entities or not. And then, of course, it took time out also to talk about the role of the judiciary in all of this and what the new CJN, Justice Kudirat Kekere, can do to introduce sanity within the judicial system in Nigeria. Let me start with you, Professor Anthony Kila. Fresh from the UK. Okay. I think you just came back, right?
I just came back. We've been around a few places.
Not just UK. You see, we are worrying about the fuel price here. Some people are using aviation jets all over the world. Welcome.
I went for work. We just want to put that. I didn't go and enjoy myself or anything. But so let us, set clear some things. I'm pleased that the new CJN made that declaration to say irregularities or misconduct will not be condoned. It is good because she has the clarity of mind and the courage of voice to understand that there's something not right with the judiciary, and she says it. I hear you ask, is she going to be able to walk out? We're not sure. The only way we can see is after, if she's able to do it. We can talk about things she needs to do, but what is clear is that she needs to do them, and what is good is that she has said that she will deal with them. There's a very simple situation that I feel can be dealt with a simple Excel sheet, which is this idea of different courts throwing out verdicts and orders on a case that is already before another court. I say a simple Excel sheet because we just need to do something. Every judge or every court should be mandated, I think, to list their judgment in one general document. And anybody that has something to do with that case should look at it and say, no, there's a pending judgment on it. That's very simple, straightforward we can do. To that extent, I would advise the CJN that if she wants to go through with this, she needs to deploy technology. It will help so that somebody will not say, I don't know. That is a free solution. We can give that way, then we can look at the details at some point. Still talking about the legal thing, this case of the EFCC, I'm not interested in individual cases. I'm interested more in the system as a whole. I heard you point out that the formation of the EFCC was a matter of necessity for Nigeria. That is a historical fact. Those who study the history of institutions will testify to the process that led to it. But we need to be careful. The fact that we do something out of experience does not mean the thing should remain that way. Once you do it, you then need to perfect it to be sure that it is kosher, as they say elsewhere. You need to perfect that it complies with all the rules. And if it doesn't, then it needs to be reviewed. There's no point, being pedestrian saying that maybe the governors are doing it because they don't want to be investigated. Yes, maybe they're doing it, but that's not what matters here. What matters here is that in cases of institution, in cases of public relationship, i.e. civic affairs, where we interact with each other in the state, what guides, what binds, what regulates us should be the law. The law should be supreme. It is in faith and in love that we go by belief or by intention. When it's matters of public domain, of public interest, the law should be followed very well. So there's no point saying maybe corruption is fighting back. That's a very dangerous way to look at things. We need to be very clear about that. Corruption will fight back, yes, but the state should be stronger than corruption. And the way for the state to be stronger than corruption is by the state itself following the rule of law. If the state, through any of its agencies, is not following the rule of law, then we have a problem. It is true that the EFCC has been useful as an institution, but I argue that the EFCC, especially the way it's rearing its head today and a bit lately, I think it needs a proper reformation, I argue. I think it needs to be decentralized. I think a lot of the powers needs to be devolved, and I think it needs to be digitalized. When we show EFCC, like you just showed now, we see people carrying guns. It is called EFCC, Economic and Financial Crime. They need to be more forensic and less Rambo. The crimes, the financial crimes, are committed with laptops with pens, not with beating up anybody. They're not burglars. These are white-collar crimes. So I think the EFCC of the future, if we really want to be serious, needs to follow the rule of law. There is a reason why, if international conventions are adopted, they need to be domesticated. Our viewers should go and look at the details. It makes fascinating reading.
Section 12.
Section 12, exactly. To make fascinating reading to see why, the reason for that. I think the FCC needs to be regularized, but whilst they're doing it, I would appeal that this is a good opportunity to actually reform the FCC. To reform it in a way that it is an agency of government and similar agencies that is truly independent, that is truly investigative. Less drama, less headlines, less personalization of affairs. We need to take it away from the suspicion that it is something for vendetta. We need to take it away from the suspicion that it is something private. The way to do that is to build a system that is truly investigative, that is truly transparent, that follows very clear rules so that everybody can see, predict, and test how the EFCC is functioning. I noticed that when you listed the number of states involved, there was sort of federal character. Every geopolitical zone was represented in the list of those 16 states. So I think it is a symptom that there's a concern out there, the way the FCC is working. And the fact that they can do it tells you about the popularity of the FCC. We cannot limit it to that. Your guest also talked about the PDP. The PDP is, at the moment, at least, let's put it this way. The PDP as it stands today is divided, divisive, and debilitated. It is debilitated because it's weak. You don't even know they're there anymore. And I want true Democrats and those who understand and hold on to institutions to follow these things very carefully. The absence of a good, strong opposition party is not beneficial to anybody in the system, including government, and particularly citizens. Even if you are a member of the APC, but if you have foresight and you have good understanding of how statecraft works, you will know that it is in your interest to have a good opposition that will hold government accountable, push them to do more, and that would perhaps point out what those in government are missing. So we cannot say PDP, what's that expression? Family affair. It is not a family affair, it is everybody's interest to make sure that the PDP works. The fact that they're not able to get themselves together is a burden of leadership, because at some point, you just realize that there are too many leaders who are boys taking on the role of men, where they cannot speak to each other and call people to account and hold them responsible for their acts. But now that they're doing this, I do hope for the benefit of the country, I do hope that they're able to come together somehow, form a good, strong party for the benefit of their members and the country. At the moment, what you have in the PDP is a few individuals, as your Mark Jacobs rightly said, your guest earlier on that, a few people who are holding the party for personal interest. But I think it's a burden on the NEC, the Executive Council. It's a burden on the Board of Trustees. It's an indictment rather than a burden that they've not been able to sort this out, and the country needs that. Petrol. I'll leave that to Professor Aworawo. Since I met him in a big car. Aworawo. He has a big car outside.
Both of you come with big cars every week. Anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
Even people with big cars now are part of the...
Are part of the struggle.
Yes. Let me just focus on the few things first. The price has gone up astronomically. In 2015, it was less than 19 naira, 89 naira per liter specifically. Yeah. And then in 2023, May, before May 29th, when subsidy was announced to have been removed, it was less than 200 naira, 185, 189. Now it's 1,100, and then to any figure. Our guest was right in saying that the NNPC has not worked efficiently. And apart from efficiency, the NNPC also hasn't been transparent, such that one is not able to pin down the reason why we have suddenly arrived at the price we are buying it for right now. There was this indication in the past couple of weeks that the free supply and pricing would function along the line of willing buyer, willing seller. Now that people are now getting the product from Dangote refinery, and people expected that competition would bring down the price to some extent. But that hasn't happened, and the whole thing is a bit opaque. Opaque because the independent petroleum marketer, IPMAN, states that NNPC is owing them 15 billion naira, and then that the NNPC will get products, then they will go and collect from some, all sorts of confusion. But the long and short is that the price is high now, it's unaffordable. It has moved from unavailability to unaffordability. In fact, a combination of both. Because in the past couple of days, we didn't have product to buy. And now that it's available, it's 1,100 thereabouts. There are people who have made the argument, and that's the one point I want to stress, who have made the argument that there's nowhere in the world where petrol sells for less than $1. Why are Nigerians complaining? And I'm shocked that they have such a poor knowledge of economics.
Yes, the shallowness of such.
When you calculate these things, you look at the average income of a family. Yeah. I'm a professor. Average monthly salary I earn is about $350. My colleague in the US earns an average of about $4,000. If he's buying 1 liter of gasoline for $1 in the US, and I'm told to buy 1 liter for the same amount, does it make sense? Very poor knowledge of economics. When you want to calculate this, you look at family income. You also look at purchasing power parity, PPP, the exchange rate and how it goes. So somebody cannot say, of course, when we're negotiating the minimum wage, one argument the government made was that, price of things will go up the roof and fuel price will go up if the 250,000 or thereabouts, which was the minimum that NSC wanted, had been paid. But 70,000 was agreed to, and where are we? Another thing is, in the US, the calculation reveals that, let's just take the US as an example, and it costs across much of the developed world. About 3 to 5% of people's earning is what is spent on energy, petrol and all. 3% of my salary would mean that I would spend less than maybe less than 10,000 a month on this thing. But I spent close to 100,000. This morning I went to buy, I first bought 30,000. When I saw where it got to in my list, I returned to go and buy another 10,000.
I told you had a big car, but go ahead.
And in a few days, it will be gone. So it is unrealistic, which is also where I agree with our guests that the government needs to do something. I mean, we can't just throw everything to it will cause chaos. Yeah. And I'm not sure any government wants chaos. That it's not a matter of whether people can resist. It's not even a matter of resistance. People are saying, oh, why Nigeria is not fighting? It's not a matter of fighting. It's a matter of doing what is right. It is not. It's not right for government to just we'll just increase to anything. People are even saying the government is doing Nigerians a favor. What other governments couldn't do, this government is doing. In 1999, where Nigeria was far worse than where Nigeria was in 2015 or even 2023. But we didn't have this panic, astronomical increase in everything. In fact, if care is not taken, if things continue like this, by the time this government is gone, the label for it is the government of inflation and poverty. And I don't think this government will want such appellation as the way to describe it. So, government has a whole lot to do.
Tinubu says, you people are not seeing what the Lord is doing.
And what is the Lord
Professor
doing?
Aworawo, I know you are a very religious person.
What is the Lord doing?
You have to open your eyes and your mind to see what Mrs. Tinubu, First Lady of Nigeria, says the Lord is doing.
What is the Lord doing? What did she say the Lord doing? The Lord is doing. The one I saw her do is to plant some things and encourage Nigerians to plant, which is good. I mean, the more we grow food, the better for us. But we also know that all those small holders growing is not the solution. Mechanized farming is the solution, which is, again brings me to the broader picture beyond fuel, and that is that there is a whole lot government needs to do at other levels beyond this fuel price thing, because the inflation is not only on fuel. The inflation affects virtually everything. And it brings me to the point Dr. Patutomi said a fortnight ago. We need to create wealth. We need to create wealth more for us to be able to live better, to improve, the quality of life. Which brings me to government policy. In the address that the president made, in the aftermath of the protests, August 1st to 7th or thereabout, 14th thereabout, he talked about the implements for agriculture haven't been ordered from Belarus, from Brazil, all over the place. He repeated the same thing on October 1st broadcast. And you wonder, why is it taking eternity for these things to come? First, why were they ordered so late? Which one comes for? Is it food or renovating house of 21 billion and all? Why did those things come before the main things that make us be able to generate, create wealth? So, better late than never. Government needs to hasten up so that things can begin to take place that would collectively improve our productivity and, by extension, our quality of life. Then the PDP crisis is just a reflection of Nigeria in microcosm. Interests. Entrenched interest. Nobody thinking about the common good, the interest of the collective. Just personal individual interest. See, Wike is a member of PDP. He's a minister in the district. In fact, he's more of a greater headache to his own party than even those in APC. I mean, it's just a summary of all of that. Let's hope that some reason will prevail somewhere. To make them to, like Professor Kila has said, where we need a vibrant opposition, especially in the midst of this kind of chaotic situation that we find ourselves. Let's hope they will put their house in order. And it's very sad that, former Governor McAfee lost his son. He was at the forefront of resolving the PDP crisis, the one that took place shortly after the last election, where we had Alimadu Sheriff, who apparently was not a PDP member and managed to emerge as this thing was against their interests. They've survived a whole lot of issues before now, and let's hope they're able to survive like they did previously. And then the judiciary finally. EFCC, there needs to be greater structure and all that, but like I've always said, when you put all the structures in place, human beings will run it. The problem is the human element, actually, because right from when it was established, it has never really been, even and fair. People who are close to government, even from Obasanjo's time, people who are close to government, that they will have announced that, oh, we are investigating, we have found this. All of a sudden, the whole thing goes quiet. The closer you are to government, the higher your capacity of escaping justice. And that is what needs to change, actually. More transparency, greater fairness. But I think we need it. We need it because there is too much corruption. Yes, there is
we need to reform the FEC. We
need to reform the FEC, but we don't need to scrap it, as some people are advocating. There is too much corruption here. See how many, we say EFCC has not done enough, but see how many people, many have been jailed. Those ones who have just carried their money and gone away and gone free.
I think they can do better.
Yeah, they can do better, of course. In this reform.
Dr. Bad, there's one thing, and it's a personal thing, on this, this situation of the fuel in the country. And I want everybody to please listen to us. When some of us, later we became very few, were against the removal of fuel subsidy, which I still continue to be against it. Because now there's a general literature, there's a general feeling to say the removal is inevitable. When some of us stood against that fuel subsidy, it is because we have the foresight to see what will happen in Nigeria today. It is because we, reading economics, reading how life works, we saw that if you take away that thing, it will cost this much and people will suffer and it will create chaos. That, I think, should be in history. It wasn't against politics, a politician, or any personal person, because a lot of people who made their career fighting Jonathan about fuel subsidy are now saying removing subsidy is normal and good. Everybody should deal with their conscience.
Okay, I get that. Some people made their career criticizing President Jonathan. Well, hypocrisy, isn't it? Yeah, well. Anyway, let's take another subject, and we'll take another one after this very quickly. Gunmen have ambushed and killed members of the Super Sports crew in Anambra State, including a cameraman, a police officer, and the bus driver, while they were traveling to cover the Super Eagles 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifying match against Libya. The attack occurred on October 8, 2024, on the Hiala-Olu Road. The Nigeria Football Federation, NFF, has expressed its condolences to the families of the victims, acknowledging the sorrow felt by its executive committee. NFF President Ibrahim Musa Gusau noted the tragedy overshadowed Nigeria's victory in the match. Out of 14 passengers on the bus, 8 were rescued, 2 escaped, and 1 remains missing. Very sad incident. Journalists going to cover Nigeria versus Libya. They were ambushed on the way. Cameraman died, journalist died, driver died. I mean, is there no limit to this banditry, this insecurity in Nigeria? Nigeria won, well, 1-0 against Libya. Some of our players have been accusing Libya of dark arts, but at least we retained our position as the leader in Group D with now, I think, 7 points, followed very closely by Republic of Benin by 6 points. And Austin Eguavoen haven't lived up to expectations, forcing a draw with, was it Benin, and beating Rwanda, and now also beating Libya. The next leg of the match is on October 15 in Libya. But very quickly, these two issues, the tragedy and then the victory, in what looks like a classic case of a tragicomedy. Professor Aworawo, let me start with you.
Yeah, the victory is welcome. People have been blaming the team as not having done well, that if they played this, if they only scored 1 goal against Libya, if they meet South Africa and Morocco, how would they perform? I think the team needs to improve. There needs to be greater commitment, and then the selection of players and the positioning also. The coach needs to understand all of this better in line with the opposition. But the team overall didn't play badly. They had 15 shots on goal, 7 on target. Libya didn't have any shots on target. You won't say a team that has seven shots on goal.
They were holding on to the ball.
Yeah, and the opposition didn't have any shot on goal in 90 minutes. That the other team that eventually won did badly. But like I said, there are the issues that need to be sorted out. Positioning, more commitment. and then knowing which tactic will work, given the opposition. Those are the things that Iguavoen needs to, pay attention. He's lucky. If that match had ended in a draw, perhaps somebody would have been asking for his head now. He wasn't as lucky as, he's luckier than Finidi was, because if that match that Finidi lost, if they have been a draw, or with the Nigeria managed to, Nigeria scored first, if Finidi will have still be on the job by now. So they all need to keep improving. Well, like you said, like tragic comedy, the best of times, the worst of times. You wonder how much more violence will Nigeria have? How much more violence will Nigeria experience? And it's always these hotspots, Anambra, Imo, on the other side. Then you go to the Kogi, Benue, then Plateau, and of course, the Northwest, where it is just a free-for-all. Well, we first commiserate with those who suffered, who died and suffered one way or the other. And again, it comes back to government. Government has the responsibility to provide security. But I sympathize with government in this because the government is structured to provide security. But society is not structured to be as violent as our country has become. Bad guys will be there, but not so many. When it becomes so intense, when you have insurgency, multipolar, it's always a challenge. But government can do better than it's doing now to provide greater security for Nigerians. Okay, Professor Kila?
Well, I think, it is obvious. The situation is obvious. The victory is a good thing. I'm happy for the coach because I'm one of those people who did not give him a lot of chance. I didn't know he would be doing so well when he came. I switched off, but as usual, I've come to the table to celebrate, and shamelessly, I'm happy that, for this situation. In terms of the security issue, it's a very sad thing, and of course, yes, our prayers and thoughts with the families of those who have lost their loved ones and the ones who are injured, we wish them speedy recovery. But we also hope that the government goes there to help, to make sure that hospitals work and they're not tied down by bills or lack of equipment. But there is a bigger question here, which Professor Aworawo, hinted out. He says the number of violent people are extraordinary. I think that's the crux of the situation. That it's not normal to have so many violent people and violent crimes in a society like Nigeria. I want those who can think, those who care, to notice that these are the symptoms of a failing state. When we talk about a failed state, it's not that one day the states are just failed, things are not working. It is kind of gradual, insidious events in which the state loses its authority or its ability to provide security for all. That is what you call a failing state. And that's what we need to curb. I think from this one, like other incidences, government needs to stand up and say, never again shall we have something like this. And the way to do it is to say, what are the causes? Something is missing here. We've not seen a police commissioner, a governor, somebody come out to say, this is a certain, we're going to deal with it. And then weeks later, see them dealing with it. If you want to curb insecurity, those are the things you need to do. Yes, you need to deal with the socioeconomic issues, education, job. You need to deal with all those things. But I also believe that you need to be strong. It is not enough to take people away, to think people are criminals because they're suffering. It is true, but it's also true that some people are criminals because they can become criminals. I think the state needs to be seen to be doing its job to avoid crime, but also to be very tough on crime, so that people should be afraid of committing crime.
Well, very quickly, let's go to Cameroon. The Cameroonian government has imposed a ban on public discussion regarding the health of the 91-year-old President Paul Biya, following widespread speculation about his well-being during his prolonged absence. In a letter dated October 9, Interior Minister Paul Atanga Nji stated that conversations about the president's health now fall under national security, with legal consequences for violators. The government's declaration comes after official reports asserted that Biya is on a private visit to Geneva and in good health, dismissing rumors of illness as pure fantasy. Regional governors have been instructed to monitor private media and social networks for any related discussions. Well, full-blown dictatorship in Cameroon, people are not even allowed to express themselves anymore. The president has become an unidentified flying object who is away on absence. He was cited last in Beijing in September. Since that 1 month ago, nobody knows where he is. The simple thing that the people of Cameroon are saying is that, where is our president? Can he just please show his face? 91-year-old, second longest serving, ruler in Africa after Teodoro Obiang Mbasogo of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea. Please, they say the president, nobody should ask about him. He has disappeared into a Bermuda Triangle that is about the national security of Cameroon. Professor Kila.
Well, I think the situation is embarrassing and retrogressive, and it's a shame that we should be having this kind of conversation this century of in 2024. It's a very shameful thing. It doesn't happen again. These are the kind of things you should be seeing in the book of history. That is what is happening. I think a good reaction to this would be for the media, intellectuals outside Cameroon to stand up for Cameroon on this matter. If I was editor in a newsroom, I would call for a feature story that follows Paul Biya outside Cameroon so that Cameroonians can read it and the world can do it. You see, the best way to deal with dictators is to let their action be the cause of their downfall. He doesn't want, or his government does not want, Cameroonians to talk about it. What the world can do for Cameroon is for the world to talk about it, like we're doing now, but to go into details and then follow it up. It's a very bad situation. Unfortunately, this lamentation of where is our president, I think your country, Nigeria, too, has had that before under Buhari at one point. Okay, here we go. So I think from the experience that Nigeria has had, unfortunately, maybe we can lend a hand to them to show that it doesn't happen again. Because perhaps if dictators, who are people of little fantasy and creation, if they learn that whatever they do to one country, in their own country, they get effect from outside their country, maybe they will sit up and act better.
Professor Aworawo.
Well, it's a shame, really, that we're having this conversation in 2024, that the president of a country disappears, and people are asking, where is he, or where is he? And, somebody in government is coming to say that you can't even ask such a question. Shame on the Cameroonian government. I would not say the Cameroonian people, the Cameroonian government, and politicians in Cameroon. How did it occur that Paul Biya has been in government all this while? It's just because the people accepted it, especially politicians and officials. Because when these laws are changed for these guys to continue in office in perpetuity, it is people who are involved. In Nigeria, we recall, although President Obasanjo says he never had a third-term idea or agenda, but we know how all of those events unfolded. It was people who stopped it. Why from Mali to Senegal to, just name it, where laws have been changed to ensure that the incumbent remains there in perpetuity. 91 years, the man has been very ill, very, very ill. There have been important occasions where the man just doesn't show up. In one of those football events that Cameroon hosted not long ago, a year or two ago, the man couldn't even stand up to come and address. The man is old, and it seems that he's very ill somewhere. But just like Professor Kila said, we need to keep talking about it. But we also expect that journalists will follow to know where he is and then reveal it. Of course, outside Cameroon, those in Cameroon might be in danger. But Cameroonians in diaspora and journalists who are just interested in Cameroon's development, they can assist with this. But it just doesn't make sense. It is so stupid that somebody at this time
in your days in uni
can come up and anyway. We can only wish Cameroonians well. We don't wish the man dead, but it doesn't seem that his health condition is good. If it were, we won't be having this kind of intervention by government.
By the way, Calabar is very close to Equatorial Guinea. It's also close to Cameroon. But in any case, the University of Calabar doesn't produce dictators. It produces superstars.
Even though they were influenced by dictators.
Anyway, let's now go to Kenya, away from Cameroon. You know, in Africa, something new always happens. Who was that now? Pliny the Elder. Something new always comes out of Africa. Kenya's High Court ruled on Friday to refer a case challenging Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua his impeachment to the Chief Justice. Parliament voted to impeach Gachagua on 11 charges, including corruption, inciting ethnic hatred, which he has denied, calling the accusations absurd. The Senate is set to debate and vote on the charges next week. Gachagua described the impeachment motion as a choreographed political lynching and criticized comments he made that angered members of President William Ruto's coalition. Justice Lawrence Mugambi emphasized the case is of public interest and called for a panel of 3 judges to review Gachagua's petition. The impeachment push has sparked division among Kenyans, with some using parliament to focus on the economic issues rather than political battles. President Ruto has not publicly commented on the proceedings. So here we go in Kenya. I thought they had their Galamsey coalition, but it seems to have fallen apart, and the vice president and the president are no longer on the same page. Another African story, Professor Aworawo.
The Kenyan story is just a reflection of the general African condition, of where a leader comes, there are high hopes, and before long, optimism gives way to pessimism, and hope gives way to despair. Ruto has been a failure, really. And in the aftermath of the violent protest a couple of months ago, it was expected that Ruto would focus on economic issues and how to improve the quality of life of Kenyans, and not some comments made by his vice, which now occupies the attention of Parliament, how to impeach him and all that. It's very unfortunate for Kenyans that after that, the demolition of the dynasty, so to speak, and Ruto, a son of nobody, who emerged from nowhere, whom everybody thought would identify with the people and pursue policies that would improve the quality of life of Kenyans, is now embroiled in the other time he allowed the IMF to trick him into taking action that would have just flung Kenya into total chaos. They managed to overcome that, and now they are, about starting a fresh one that will just heat up the place. A simple comment, just pass it on. I mean, the president is not an emperor. Even emperors, people speak about them, and sometimes they just overlook and move on. So I hope the parliament and the president will think right, such that there are more important things for Kenyans to focus on than this unnecessary crisis they want to create. Anyway, they have laws. Let them just follow the laws. And follow the laws and ensure that they do what is right.
Are you saying Gachagua should go?
He should not go. From all the facts have been presented, these are just simple comments that even government could have taken, the president could have taken in giant stride as a sort of advice, so to speak. Maybe he could have done that privately, but it doesn't really matter.
They say he has been a very quarrelsome vice president, quarreling with the national security advisor, quarreling with other members of cabinet. And when the youth of Kenya trooped to the streets, he was criticizing the government of which he himself is a part.
Yeah.
How about that in terms of decorum?
That again tells you where the issues lie. The people who trooped out to protest, they had good reasons to come to protest. He may not have applied the best approach, since he's a vice president. I mean, he has access to he should have access to the president and all that. But we have also had in different governments where an individual will come and say, identify with the people. Sometimes the president, if they have good relationship, we even tell the vice to go and identify with them as a way of helping us to, resolve this matter. So I don't think it's quarreling with, how? And quarreling with, is that an impeachable offense? I talked about following the law, really.
Well, just to know that the parliament in Kenya is behaving like the Nigerian parliament. Anything the president wants. Augusta. They will say anything the president wants is what we will do.
And it's an indictment on parliaments across Africa. All those changing of constitutions to make people stay in perpetuity. It's parliaments who have been doing, they just come and rubber stamp and move on. As if they don't understand, they shouldn't be, like enemies of the executive, but they should do their work. Not just anything executive wants, you just stamp and move on. When that happens, it is detrimental to the overall, interest of the state.
Okay, Professor Kila.
Well, I mean, just in brief, because you said everything. I think Africa needs three things, and what is happening in Kenya is a political issue. It's not about the statement. It is because the man is an opposition in government. And the reason why he has to act that way is because there is no space for opposition in African politics. You're either in or out totally. I think Africa needs to develop statesmen. We need to develop our institutions, and we need to develop a system that is truly diversified, so that you do not need to be in government. I think where the vice president is today, it will make sense for him to resign and go and lead the opposition. But, he has a right to be there and object to what is going on. And I think Ruto should be very careful, because the way he's doing this thing, those with whom the vice president identified before, if they form another coalition against him, he's going to be in trouble again. And I'm very surprised that he's so myopic. I never fell for the charm of a son of nobody becoming president, thinking because of that he will be good. I saw through him. I was never enchanted by the Ruto phenomenon. So I'm not disappointed. I know Professor Aworawo was. That's why he's very angry with what? Because he had high hopes for Ruto. We had this conversation then, and I saw through the Ruto affair. But here we are. But the key thing, as he said, is to follow the rule of law. Because my idea that the vice president needs to go is a political position. But the legal and institutional position is that he has the right to freedom of expression, he has the right to be different, to hold different view from that of government. It might be bad for decorum, I agree with you, but he has the right to do that. You cannot impeach him because of that. You can criticize him, maybe not invite him to dinner, but you cannot want to impeach him because of that. And I think if we follow the rule of law, then everybody will be happy.
Yeah, but this raises a question about coalition politics
yes.
in African democracy. If two parties come together, two leaders come together, how can one of them say he's an opposition leader in government? Once you have acceded to the terms of the agreement, the partnership, government of national unity, whatever they call it, don't you think that he is bound by the terms of that?
It should be. Let us say it should be, but it's about process as well. If we form a coalition government and you go and do what I stand against without consulting me, I have the right to rebel. Actually, I have a duty to rebel, because that way you initiate, you violate my principle and my worldview. But if we say we form a government coalition, maybe you're from the left, I'm from the right, we look at it and we find a compromise so that any policy we do, we own it together. That, is a criteria for policy making. That way you cannot walk away because your input is there. But if your input is not there, you have a right, if not a duty, to walk away.
That is correct. Just hypothetically, let's assume that when Ruto was, taking the decision on that tax increase, the vice president was opposed to it.
Yes.
But he went ahead with it all the same, and then he created that crisis.
Yes.
He will express his mind and say, well, I stand with the people. Maybe at some point he will need to resign. Maybe, but there's nothing wrong with his having dissenting positions to that of the president.
As we say, he cannot be asked to spit out what he did not chew.
Anyway, on that note, I hope other African leaders will learn from what is going on in Kenya. Because, well,
let's hope.
We keep saying that they should learn. And why do we elect as our leaders people who lack the capacity to learn, or the capacity to even show basic initiative in very critical situations? Well, on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Professor David Aworawo and Professor and Tony Kila. I look forward to seeing you next week. Don't disappear like the Cameroonian president. Show up when I need you. Anyway, you've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.